Este contenido es financiado con recursos del Fondo Único de Ti.
So how you guys doing? It's good to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. How are you guys doing?
We're just, kicking it and, waiting for this very special moment to get to know you and see how you've been. Saw you guys were in Amsterdam. How was it?
Amsterdam was lovely, actually. It was great.
Yeah, it was all good. Paris was good. Lisbon was good.
Berlin was good.
Berlin was good. London was good.
Okay, so you guys have been around for quite a while this year.
Doing a little bit of press, yeah.
Okay. Was this the very first time you got out of LA after the whole pandemic gig?
No, I've been going to London, but I had multiple problems aside from the pandemic.
What happened?
I broke both my feet,
goodness.
shattered my heels, and I had to have like pins and plates put in them. So I couldn't walk for 6 months.
How? How did you break your feet?
I jumped off a wall with no shoes on.
On his birthday.
On my birthday. Yeah. It wasn't a drunken thing.
Okay.
I know. Can you believe that? It was actually a very kind, generous thing.
What was it? I mean, why did you have to jump?
Because my dog, I was going to bed and I heard my dog, what sounded like my dog being attacked by, I thought it was coyotes because I get coyotes up there in my house. So I just ran out. It was like just a knee-jerk reaction. I just ran out and jumped off this big wall down some stairs, concrete steps, and just shattered my heels. It wasn't coyotes in the end. It was a skunk.
Okay. How long did it take you to recover?
6 months. So I
Started walking at like 6.
I was in a wheelchair for 4 months, and then I started walking after that, but I couldn't really walk for a while. It's an amazing feeling when you haven't used your feet and your legs for a while. It's so uncomfortable, so painful. I don't know how people do it.
Walk?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's it.
No, because a lot of it is really, you just get used to how uncomfortable walking is.
Right, and you don't feel it anymore.
Your brain doesn't receive it as pain, but it's really painful.
Yeah. I believe it. You have your whole body weight on 2 little tiny flat things at the bottom of your body, supporting everything. It's kind of a weird concept, walking. Let's really dive into that.
How old are you, Jamie?
How old am I?
Yeah.
54.
All right. Okay.
How old are you?
I'm 48.
Getting there.
Yeah. How are the years treating you? You guys happy?
Yeah, I mean, we're very excited about this record. We feel like we've been through a lot in the last 7 years, We had a really wonderful time with Ash and Ice and touring the world for 3 years, and then, like everybody else on the planet, went through the pandemic, which was, not that much fun. And I'm very, very proud that we were able to put together a record that we're so in love with, and to get to go out on the road again. What
was the hardest part of being locked down?
I think for me, it was just the physicality of not going some other places. I've been basically on tour since I was 14 years old, so that's 30 years, and
I know.
I'm not used to being anywhere longer than about 2 weeks, 3 weeks, so that's pretty much my max out point, or at least it was before the pandemic. Now I'm like pretty good for a month and a half. I'm cool. But before that, it wasn't like that, so it was really, I was very itchy. That was the hardest thing for me, I think.
Did you guys stop seeing each other during that time?
No, because I couldn't stay home. I started driving back and forth across the country to come see him. Yeah.
I saw an interview of you guys before this whole thing started, and I guess, you have to talk about it because there were so many songs that were almost ready to go out into the world before the whole thing just, collapsed. And you were pretty desperate too, like in some of the interviews that you guys were doing on Zoom, you're already fed up with the whole situation. I saw a couple.
Maybe I've remembered it differently, but I felt like I had a sort of manic episode for 2 years. It just kind of, I quite enjoyed it, but it wasn't without its frustrations. I mean, the downside is always the dangers of being able to do exactly what you want. When I was living like a cat, you know, I didn't go to bed at any time. I just sort of like had a little sleep when I was tired, and then I'd be up again. But like night and day, nothing. There was just no regiment, no discipline at all. I'd just have a little cat nap for a bit. Sometimes I was up at 4 o'clock in the morning till 10 in the morning, and then I'd sleep. Sometimes I was, you know, it takes its toll after a while.
Did the songs that you were working on make it into this album? Are they a part of this album, or was the pandemic just like a big catalyzer for working on new stuff and making God Games happen?
I think there's only one song. We were just talking about this in the last. There's only one song that we wrote before the pandemic that made it to the other side of the pandemic.
Bullet Sound made it from one side to the other. Yeah. But there was a lot of songs that were just, I mean, it wasn't really anything to do with the pandemic. We were just starting. Alison's process is to write a lot of things, you know, like, and, you know, just give me all of them. And there was just, they're always good. There's nothing, you have to have that thing where something jumps out and you're like, oh my God, you know, and we weren't really feeling that. And same with the stuff I was doing, we just weren't really feeling anything apart from Bullet Sound. And then after that, I don't know whether it was because we were closer to mortality. It just felt like so much more urgent and so much more important to make. Everything had to be absolutely go through a sort of filter of the standard was really high, you know.
Was there anything that you mentioned, or at least I was reading as I was listening to the album on the Domino Record page, that you're an atheist, but is there anything that you believe in when it comes to the music that you made for this album?
Well, beliefs, you know, you talk about belief in supernatural things that don't exist. That's one thing. Obviously, I believe in a lot of things. I believe in the power of music, if you want to be hippie about it. There's no doubt about that. Sometimes I don't feel like I have to decide what I really believe in, or decide, or define it, or have it make sense. Sometimes I think about ghosts, and I just think I shouldn't, you know, do I really believe in ghosts? Because if I don't believe in the afterlife, that shouldn't exist. But I just don't really care. When I pick up my guitar from like 1921 and I play some stuff on it, it makes me believe in ghosts. There's something in that shit. There's something going on in there, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
It's energy. There's like energy and stuff.
Vibrations.
You know? Vibrations, man.
Vibrations.
We are in LA.
There's vibrations everywhere, actually, not just fucking LA.
I know.
Don't let those fools hijack it.
It's vibrations and food here.
Oh, high vibrations.
Tell me about the story of New York and how that song came about.
So it was still kind of the pandemic, but everyone was traveling and everyone was vaccinated, and it was kind of a different time, right? It was a couple of years later, and I know this fellow is
so much higher than you. I need a booster cushion. Yeah, go on. Sorry.
I went to New York during the summer in 2021 and had the most incredible 10 days there. For one, New York during the pandemic was the one place in America which I had my eye on the entire time, because it was an absolute shit show with COVID. You know, it was kind of the epicenter for this country at that time. And so all the news was kind of coming through there, everything. And New York also happens to be my favorite city in the world. So it was the one place that I missed the most the entire time. I just wanted to go back. So it was glorious. It was an amazing thing to finally get to go to New York and walk down the streets and see my friends. And that song was inspired by just the happiness and the joy and that I feel there, and how inspiring it is. And it's a love song to the city. It's a love song itself. It's just like every time I've gone to New York in my life, I always come back full. I'm just full, and I'm ready to make something. And so I came home and wrote that song.
What is it about New York?
What is it about New York? We're not allowed to really know. Otherwise, the magic will go away.
What did Crashing a Wedding have to do with writing that song?
I don't know if Crashing a Wedding had to do with writing that song, but crashing a wedding is not something I would normally do, and that's the kind of thing I would do in New York. So this is what I mean. You know, there's just like funny things that happen. You don't have to make plans there. You just walk down the street and suddenly you're going to a wedding, and suddenly you meet somebody. This happens. You run into an old friend. You're now like you've been dragged to the theater. You're going to see this art thing. Like you don't have to. Just all you have to do there is just get out of bed and walk outside, and then the whole day will happen. And that was one of those things. It's a perfect example of what I mean.
Yeah. What about LAX?
What about it?
Tell me the story. Isn't it about a city too?
It's about LA. It was actually quite. I was on a street.
Because it's contrast. It's a bit of a contrast, isn't it? I mean, when you hear the stories.
You mean between New
York and LA and how it came about?
That's totally accidental, though. We weren't trying to just write an East Coast, West Coast
Well,
vibe.
Alison had a love experience in New York. My LAX song was not about a love experience. Few of my songs are about love experiences.
What?
The aftermath of love experiences, perhaps. But LA, I was standing on a corner and I just loved this sound. The sound of LA. It was like cars passing with, you know, hip hop going in one car, like boom, like loads of sub bass, and then a kind of gospel choir going the other way, and a mariachi band, and just all this cacophony of cars with music blasting. And I just wanted to make a song like that. And I liked the idea of. I didn't like the idea. It just struck me that everyone was in little capsules in their cars in LA, and they've all got these little lives going on, and it was a.
It's a culture clash. It's
Yeah,
really
it was
cool.
just writing about there's some kind of black magic here, something weird going on, and whether it's good or whether it's bad, it doesn't matter. I think we always try to put things in categories of whether it's nice or good or fun or positive or negative, and it doesn't matter to me. It's just something, and that was what that song was about: the chaos and the cacophony and the hypocrisy and everything that is the wonderfully beautiful LA.
Yeah. I'm curious and captivated by how your relationship has turned into one of the most successful musical careers of rock and roll in a time where rock and roll seems to be going through popularity crisis, if you will. And I would like to very naively ask how you guys got together and how your relationship and your friendship and your musical partnership came about.
Well, we met in like 1997 or 98.
99.
That's the first time we
I
met?
think so.
I've been coming over there a lot before that.
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe.
Going to London.
Yeah. I was in a band called Discount, and we toured in England a lot. And he lived in a house in South London that also had two other people in it. One of the other people drove the van that I was touring in, and the other guy booked the tours. And he was part of a record label with one of the guys that put a 7-inch out of mine. And so I was just hanging around there, and we met that way. I was sleeping on the ground floor, and I could hear this crazy guitar playing coming through the ceiling. And it was the coolest sound I'd ever heard. And I didn't know who that was. And that was that guy. Then this like really cool looking guy with like crazy style comes downstairs to make some toast and some coffee and hang out. And it was Mr. Jamie Hince.
This crazy style thing, I've heard this before. Do you remember, like...
You had really crazy style.
Someone said, like, we did a load of recording at Benton Harbour, this studio called Key Club, and the guy that was running it, he said, I ran into this guy, and he said, yeah, I think I know that Jamie guy. He's kind of really weird. He was wearing 3 pairs of goggles.
Yeah, that's exactly.
I did have that phase, didn't I?
Yeah.
Because we were recording, and it wasn't a fashion thing. It was like, I just felt, look, I wanted to have these blinkers on, so I put all these goggles over so I couldn't see. And then when I was playing, it was fucking amazing. And it was like, I would drum with like 3 pairs of goggles, like just I was like lost in, like, what do you call those? Those kind of, sensory thingy chambers.
Yeah.
It felt like that. Anyway,
You were like,
over to you. Back to what my style was.
anyway, yeah, he was, wild looking and really funny. And so that's how we met, basically. We started to become friends and talk and hang out, and he would play me records, and we would talk about books, and we would talk about music, and mostly he would talk, and I would just laugh. And
Nothing's changed.
not much has changed. And then I was going on a tour in Europe with my band, and he lent me a 4-track cassette recorder to take with me, and he encouraged me to write songs. He's like,
You weren't writing at
I
that
wrote
time?
lyrics. I was in a 4-piece band. I was a singer, so they wrote the music and I wrote the lyrics, and that's how we operated, which is kind of pretty normal, you know. And that's what I was doing, but he really encouraged me to write my own things. And so I took that away, and I just felt like it was the best. It was the best task anybody could set for me. You know, it was so much
She
fun.
brought it back, and they played these things, and I was so jealous. It was just like, it wasn't songs. It was just these amazing kind of sound collage things that really cool. I mean, we're just really fucking cool. It just like chopped up drums with some like radio stuff, and then her speaking over the top, and it was just really. She just had a natural. It was talented, really, really talented. Just absolutely unhinged, but talented.
Which is just like 3 goggles, but put to music.
Yeah.
What's your first memory of Alison?
Well, it was in a pub called the Paxton. I lived in a little squat in Gypsy Hill, and I was sitting in there, and she walked in with her band, and that was it. That was my first, and I said hello, and she just went bright red, and didn't say anything back.
When did you decide to become the Kills?
Well, there was a kind of moment, but before that we were kind of sending, because he inspired me with this 4-track thing. So I bought a 4-track in Florida, and we would just like send tapes back and forth and add things to each other's tapes. And we kind of did that for half a year or something. And then I went back to London, and he picked me up from the airport, and I think that's when we decided that we were going to be a band and turn our lives into a band and our band into our lives, and we were going to basically be like an art duo. You know, there's not rules. There's not like, you know, if film is part of it or painting is part of it or, you know, books are part of it or whatever the art form is. This is all possible. You know, we can make anything we want, any kind of music, whatever. So it was really exciting, and it was kind of, we made a pact on that car ride back to Gypsy Hill. And
That was it.
23 years later,
we
here
didn't
we are.
literally become. We'd actually recorded our first EP before we literally became the Kills. And that was actually the deadline. Was like we'd done 2 shows without a name, and then we finished our EP, and we had to write something on the tape books, and we basically came up with it the night before because we had to come up with a name. So we did that, and I remember the first reaction from the guy that I really looked up to. He was like, "Sounds like a metal band." Fucking miserable stuff.
What was it like back then? You know, you've been around for 20 years, and it seems like a flash. You know, it seems like it just, you know, it still sounds refreshing and new and young, but, you know, what has changed? What was it like back then?
Well, I don't know, I feel like we came around at a really cool time when there were a lot of guitar bands. There's a lot of like stuff that we were really into actually happening. And now we've been through lots of phases in music where that maybe we're playing festivals and we don't know anybody there. And that's really a weird thing, you know, and we don't hear one single electric guitar all day. But for some reason we're on this fest, you know what I mean? There's those cycles, those things that have happened.
I think there was definitely that time. There was a time, sort of between 2016 and 2020, where guitar music was really flatlining. It was dying. It really felt like that, but not anymore. I think it's really happened again. There's so many of the coolest new things that I hear are guitar bands. You know, like really young kids. That's the coolest shit you can do, is pick up a guitar and play a guitar. And I think that's fucking wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is the coolest thing you can do. Let's face it.
And it's very interesting to hear it happen as refreshingly as it was the first time on this new album, you know, on God Games. You really hear guitar power, but you hear a whole bunch of other stuff, you know. It's not just, yeah, of course, the guitars are essential, but
I think it's important for, you know, rock and roll music to evolve. It's like he talks about it all the time. The rock and roll production is not very progressive. It's not very forward thinking. It's not very modern. It's like quite retrospective, you know.
sort of traditional, maybe.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
then,
it's
you know,
very
like hip hop and
referential
pop and R&B and all of that is like really forward thinking, always kind of reinventing, always pushing the envelope, you know. And
We've always been fascinated with that, with trying to make something that is, and maybe not for our first couple of records, but in my head, I've always been trying to do that, is trying to make a kind of new horizon.
It sounds like it.
For electric guitar music.
It definitely sounds like it, but back then, first two records, were there influences or things you were looking into?
The first record, I just wanted to be Velvet Underground, and the second record, I wanted to be Suicide and Cabaret Voltaire.
Cool.
But I think those are those you become more, you're more referential when you're younger. You know, you kind of want to sound like the things you love, and then as you get older, you understand the things that you love, and you understand that sounding like them is is destroying it. You know, so I want to take influences that, and you know, I've lost track of the question.
Yeah, we were talking about innovation, freshness, and how new this record sounds. Because, and then I asked you about the first couple of records, but then coming back to God Games does sound like sometimes as a listener, if you're a fan of music, you will have to give God Games more listens than expected, you know, because there's not much to find yourself in terms of references, you know.
I'm happy with that.
yeah.
It's a daunting listen, you know. It's not something that you approach and say, oh, I heard that,
Right.
you know, felt that.
It's really
before.
nice that it's not familiar.
It isn't. But at the same time, once you hear it 3 or 4 times, it grows on you. It starts growing on you.
This is our, you know, this is the phase we're in. You know, making futuristic, experimental, groundbreaking music. Next album's going to be all hits. Okay, just wait, guys. It's a journey.
Quite a journey it is. And you worked with Paul Epworth on this record, and I was going to ask you right after you talked about the beginning, when we were talking about the beginning, because he was a part of the beginning as well, of the Kills, right? Tell me more about
He was our
working with
first
him.
sound man. Literally our first sound man. Literally?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was literally our first sound man. The first, I mean, on our very first tour, we didn't have a sound man because we were that's how embryonic it was. But our first paid sound man was Paul Epworth. Thank you. You're welcome. Adele. It wasn't for us.
Have you been in contact with him over the course of these years?
Not for a while. I mean, we would check in sometimes, or I'd get a text from him sometimes, like, "Oh, I ran into blah blah blah," but no, we weren't really in contact. We hadn't been for a little while. But I mean, the conversation, when we decided that it was a smart idea, maybe it would work with Paul. The conversation was like seconds long. He was like, "Yeah, definitely." But it wasn't even a yes or no, was it? It was just like, "When should we start?"
Yeah.
You know. And we'd sent him demos, and he said, like, "Look, it was a perfect project for him."
Well,
Because I think if he'd had to start from scratch, you know, with no songs, which is kind of often what we do when we go in the studio, it would have been a much more of a weird headache and not knowing where it was going to go. But the record was written. It was pretty. He said himself, you know, You don't need a producer; it's already produced, which was just wonderful to hear because it meant that he could be this overseer that just kind of like told us when things were done and got really great performances out of us. That's what we kept saying. We said, look, we've got the foundation, but we want to go into a studio and do, perform it, like have this raw adrenaline-filled performance over the top. And what better person to do it with than someone that's, made multi-platinum records.
Did it work that way entirely, or were there parts where you had to just stop and go back to the drawing board and rethink some of the songs?
No, I mean this was like 5/8 of the way through. So we'd already Paul was brought in at the very last stage, so all that stuff we'd already overcome. We'd already had those kind of fears and meltdowns and tantrums and elation and euphoria. We'd already had all that. There was no kind of there wasn't any points like that in the studio particularly, were there? I had a bit of a meltdown because I hadn't put any guitar on anything, and I'd kept promising that I would come in with some guitar, and I just kind of hadn't got anything. That was a little bit of a worry, but boy, did it.
What about you? What was your process working on this album? Tell me about it.
Well, what part of it? In the studio or?
The songwriting, maybe? If you could share with me.
I started, Jamie suggested that I get this little keyboard to write on. He's just like, just mess around with it and see what happens. Kind of like that day he gave me that 4-track to take away. And I loved it. I kind of dove right in and just started writing songs, so many songs. And I loved what the keyboard did because it just like changed the rhythm of everything. So I don't know how to play piano, so it was kind of very rudimentary and it was very freeing. And I could come up with melodies that I was so fascinated by, and I could come up with different rhythms to sing things, and it was great. So I think my songwriting was, the process of writing was completely different for me on this record. Normally I would just write on an acoustic guitar or something. That would be like the foundation, and then that goes away, and then, but yeah, that was brilliant. And then in the studio, it was a really nice thing to go into the studio with everything done. And I said it the whole time we were in there. I was like, Jamie, this feels so much like making our first record. Because I think the very last time we went into a studio with everything written and done was Keep on Your Mean Side. It might have happened for No Wow. It might have, but I feel like we kind of had a few false starts with that. Anyway, regardless, it was such a wonderful feeling to be in the studio and know what you wanted to achieve and not be kind of grasping and looking. Certainly there were creative things to be done in the studio, plenty, but it was to have the foundation laid and know what the songs are and pretty much how they're going to go and what you want to hear out of them was a really fun thing to do. It's really enjoyable to be in a studio for me at that point. And then working with Paul was great. He'd almost trick me into singing songs because I would go in and I was thinking I was like checking a mic, and he'd be like, okay. So we would only get to sing the song like once or twice. And for the most part, that's what you're hearing on the record.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's interesting how when Jamie invites you to try something new, you dive right into it. I'd be scared shitless, man.
That's always been like that.
I'd be like play piano, play a piano.
I'm very happy to try anything.
I've done it before. I got this thing like a sequencer with all these patterns, kind of. It's called
That, you lost me on that one.
And they gave that nothing. It's in the corner, not even in the corner. It's just hidden. Just don't like the look of it. And then the good thing about this Akai keyboard was it looked really cool. It's got reverse color keys, so all the white keys are black and all the black keys are white.
Pretty dope.
And it's really dope. That's what got was the look of it.
The look and feel.
No, I think I
She still has this thing,
I
which is
understand
it's a
very, like-
rule of music, which is really works a lot. If the thing looks good, it's going to sound good.
I understand mechanical things like cassettes, right? I understand how that works. I can my brain can know, but as soon as there was a bunch of pads and things, and I had to do this computer program, and suddenly I was just so fluxing
To be
that I
honest
couldn't
with
be
you,
creative.
I agree. It's
I was just I don't like it.
My brain
I don't
doesn't
like
really
it.
work very well like that. I know those things by memory only. I don't understand the logic. So if I get really into these things and can work them like the back of my hand. They put them away for a month. Then I can't do it. I've got to learn it all again.
Tell me about the artwork.
What about it?
Who did it?
Well, who did it? It's difficult to say.
It's very difficult to say.
It was a painting that was left at my house when I moved in as a gift, and it was above my fireplace. And I just, I kind of laughed at it when I saw it because it's not a very good painting. It's obviously a sort of want-to-be painter who hadn't quite got there, and I just kind of grew to love it because I looked at it every day, especially during the pandemic. My kind of sofa area was my creative hub, and this was my...
Your leg casts.
This was kind of my altar, because I was like this with my feet because I couldn't move. And this was my altar, and it would just kind of made me... I just looked at it so much. It seemed like, if your record is going to absorb the time that you live in, well, that was pretty, symbolic of the time that I was in. And I liked just how much it conjured up, there's an obvious metaphor about human condition in a bullfight, the cruelty of it, and how we are with animals and people and everything, emotionally, physically, and how we dress it up in tradition and all this kind of weird sort of ridiculous behaviour that we've decided is able to excuse a lot of these things. And at the same time, it's a bad picture, and I liked that it was a kind of an artist that was struggling with painting a picture. There is no statement. It's just it's designed
It's just something to think about.
make you think, and there's not a code to it or an answer at the end. It's all the things you think. If you are against animal cruelty, which I hope everyone is, then you will see that's your reaction. If you're pro bullfighting, that's your reaction. It's blame yourself, don't blame the artwork.
But is it connected to the lyrics? Because it does sound a bit like...
Well, it seemed to make sense. Both of us were writing. We had lots of bull references and heaven references and God references and all these things that just kept showing up in our lyrics, very unbeknownst to the two of us. It was he'd play me a song and I'd play him a song and be like, we've used some of the same kind of lyrical, clues, things that... And it was interesting. So it felt really.
For me, it was just that verse, and God gained like a matador that adore you for every heart you tore through, and then whatever the next line is, I can never remember my own lyrics.
I can remember.
And like every matador before you, they're praying for the bulls to gore you. It's a simple concept to grasp, and it's a simple metaphor, It's obviously not literal. It's a metaphor for you can do all these things that you get accepted for, cruel, brutal things, some might say, that you'll be accepted into the crowd. But at the end of the day, everyone's really hoping you're going to get fucked over. As humans.
Yeah.
Right. I really like the artwork.
I like it too.
But we couldn't actually use...
I love it.
We couldn't use my original painting. Because we couldn't.
So what you
We
use?
had my friend Rachel repaint it.
We had,
Really?
Yeah. I loved that idea. I was kind of angry that we couldn't use it, but then I liked this idea. It just seemed, like I said, absorbing, and you want your record to be, now in a kind of representation of what's going on now, and it seemed like another layer of it was that we, copy. Oh shit. Seeing copyright, you can't use this painting, litigation again, informs the art you can use, and I sort of just thought that was very.
But it's happening all over the place, like that whole litigation thing.
Never had it this bad. It's kind of mad. Like you're doing some artwork, and it's like, I would like to draw your attention to the Apple iPhone in photograph number 4. It's like, oh my fucking god, how's that happened?
I don't know, but I think it's a striking image, and connected to the title of the album. And once you start, swimming deep into the album, then it makes a whole lot of sense because it connects to all your senses. It's visual, it's, you're hearing things, you're sort of just feeling an entire body of work. And I think that's, amazing. That's pretty cool. It's crazy that you didn't think it was a good painting. I actually thought it was pretty
technically
interesting.
I think it's a pretty good painting. I think the original is pretty good, actually. But the funny thing about it is, I'm pretty sure that the bull has 5 legs.
No, I think it's his penis.
It's not his penis. It's a 5th leg that they just.
Penis.
It's a very big.
So, competition time. Is it a leg or is it a penis? Answers on a postcard.
Listen, tell me about the working on the studio. That's a church. Is that where Paul works?
Yeah, that's his studio. It's called the Church. It is
a church. An old church. It used to be Dave Stewart from Eurythmics, and then David Gray, who was a big artist in England, and then Paul Epworth took it on after that. Very famous studio. I think the Travelling Wilburys recorded there.
Really?
Bob Dylan slept there.
Yeah, well, I think in the Wilburys, which means Roy Orbison sang in there. Oh my God!
Cool.
Can you believe that? That really gets me going.
Maybe the ghosts of Roy Orbison.
I totally hang out with his ghosts.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I didn't see him when I was there.
And Tom now. Tom and Roy together.
Yeah.
Betty and Orbis.
You saw them?
When?
The Travelling Wilburys? You ever saw them?
No.
No. What about, are we ready? Okay. Okay, I had one last couple questions to ask. You still painting?
Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
Do you showcase your artwork?
I haven't done a show since 2019, but I can't wait to do another one.
You did, I don't know if you did it for them, but one of Colombia's most important rock bands, Diamante Eléctrico, you did Buitres cover,
They
right?
used the painting. Well, that was in my Mexico City show, and they used that painting, and I love that they did. It's so cool.
Yeah, they have really great fond memories of you. So, and they send their regards.
When will we come? We've never played Colombia.
I was just gonna ask that.
We really want to.
So what are we gonna do about
this?
Happen? I would very much love to do that.
Who do we call?
Just get some sort of petition.
Who do I call? I mean, what do I have to do? Who do I have to talk to? I'm more than willing to.
I love it. I got to go to Colombia once for a vacation, and it was just
Where'd you go?
Most amazing. I went to Cartagena.
Okay.
I went to Medellin.
Yeah.
Right? Pronouncing
Medellin.
Medellin.
That's it. Yeah.
And then what's the big city one?
Bogota.
Bogota.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Is Andrew Luke Oldham still live there?
Yep. Yes.
He interviewed us from there. That's the closest I've ever got to Bogota.
He's got a beautiful house in Apulo, on the outside of Bogota. I mean, you have to go to Bogota. You too have to go to Bogota and hang out.
We're going to do it.
It's
We're going to do it.
definitely a city
I
that's...
absolutely loved it so much. It was brilliant. I do have a question, though. The whole time I was there, I was trying to send a postcard, and no one would sell me stamps. How do you guys send mail?
I don't think we do anymore. But we do have a postal service.
But where? How do I get to it?
That's a great question. That's a great question.
I talked to every hotel, walked around.
And they didn't know?
No, they would send me to some sort of place, and I would get to that place, and they would be like, no, that we don't. It was like I had to send a package, but I couldn't just like send a postcard.
That's interesting because, I mean, I guess,
This is a while ago. I mean, this is probably like 7 years ago, but still, I'm still trying to send a postcard in Colombia. So if you've got any tips.
Oh, I've got to play that.
It's still very interesting that you're sending postcards. That you still send.
She does it whenever she goes away. She still does. She's one of the,
I have to send postcards.
last of a dying breed. Whenever she's away somewhere, I'll get a postcard from her. Every birthday cards. That's a dying thing. I don't send them anymore. Christmas cards. She's got a Christmas card list. She sends cards out.
I enjoy this.
She had a good mother. Her mother brought her up with an iron fist, told her to send cards, be polite.
Go.
My mother, on the other hand.
When's the tour starting?
You don't want to send
We start in February in America.
Okay.
And then the rest, I don't know what the order of everything will be, but I really would like to come there.
What do you want to do most? Festivals or just, shows? Your shows?
I actually don't mind. Whatever gets us there, I'll take it. Festivals are probably usually easier to do.
But what's your preference right now?
I love just normal shows.
Yeah, normal shows.
It seems like everyone
I prefer.
is kind of going back into their own thing.
Festivals got a little bit blown out. I mean, it's just all gotten so big.
Depends what you're talking about, though, because festivals in America are just kind of not that fulfilling anymore. So many rules and stupidity.
But I think there's some new good ones.
There's a lot. Festivals in England have got very commercial, obviously just doing it for the money. Festivals in South America have been like a completely different kettle of fish, And I do feel like playing like a festival in Peru or something, or in Argentina, is kind of maybe preferable for me to play a club show, just because you can play to more people. And we don't get down there that much, so it's kind of nice.
But I definitely would love to see you guys perform on your own.
We will make sure it happens.
So good to meet you.
So nice to meet
Such a wonderful album. Thank you very much for giving me these 40 minutes of your time. God Games is amazing.
Thank you.
Este contenido es financiado con recursos del Fondo Único de Ti.